You talk about influencers. These are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack, who's done a great job.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec. We are back here live, Human Events Daily, Washington, D.C. And wanted to get on now Dan Caldwell because we have this incredible breaking news out of Poland, this situation, geopolitical incident, this violation of the airspace, which took place. A lot of people asking, what will the escalation be? Also, a lot of people asking, what happened? And people can go back and see my sort of real-time analysis of this on Timcast IRL last night. Go and watch that. I'm getting real-time inputs from D.O.D, DOW, military officials, IC, and even Polish government officials, all in real time. So I'm going to bring him on now. Dan Caldwell, former D.O.D official from the Trump administration. Dan, what's your read on what happened last night?
So just starting off, I think that what happened last night is a reminder of why it is so dangerous for the Russia-Ukraine war to continue, especially with tens of thousands of American troops in Eastern Europe, is that this is how the war is going to escalate into direct conflict, is incidents like this, where it would appear that these Russian drones were launched against Ukraine, that they were jammed, and they went off course and they flew into Poland. And that is what sparked the activation of NATO air defenses, particularly the NATO aircraft and ground-based anti-air systems. And remember, we've seen this movie before. In 2022, there's a Ukrainian S-300 missile that was trying to intercept a Russian ballistic missile on the border with Poland. And that missile went off course and went into Poland and tragically killed 2 Polish farmers. Now, remember what happened almost immediately after that is almost every unhinged pro-war voice in Europe and in the United States was demanding Article 5. At first, they tried to say, and the Ukrainian government, I still think to this day, says that it's a Russian missile. They tried to say at first it was a Russian missile, and all it turned out to be was an accident. And that seems to be the case here, and you still have the same voices demanding war. So that's why it is so important that we have to get to a position where we end this war, because this is the risk, is that something like this could escalate into a direct conflict. And the last thing we need is a direct conflict with a nuclear-armed Russia.
Absolutely. Now, Dan, some of the information coming out here, and we've seen the Russians, of course, have come out and said that they have requested or are open to consultation with the Polish side. NATO Article 4 is also a consultation when it's invoked. It is certainly not the same thing as invoking Article 5, which essentially is a declaration of war. And we're also seeing, though, some of the social media images that are filling up from these areas in Poland, specifically Lublin, where one appears to have crashed into a house. There's some information about Warsaw that, in fact, a military base may have seen a crash of one of these things. So all sorts of questions about the penetration of airspace, but also the types of drones. They don't seem to have warheads on some of them in the number of ones that I've seen. And I've seen a lot of people pointing out that they're made of cardboard, in some cases made of foam, that essentially these are decoys intended to defeat air defense, to trick air defense into going after them, so that the real drones that do have the warheads could then crash into their intended targets over in Ukraine.
Correct. These types of drones are designed to get Ukrainian or NATO forces, if, God forbid there would be a direct conflict with NATO forces, to turn on their radars or to expend hard-to-replace Patriot missiles, Iris missiles, some of the remaining Soviet-era stocks Ukrainians still possess, to run those down and get them to reload so that then they could bring in more lethal drones or more likely ballistic missiles that have more precise targeting, like the Iskander systems or the KH-101 or Caliber cruise missiles that are launched from sea. So those types of decoy drones are very susceptible to jamming. They don't have the most sophisticated systems. So while some think that maybe this was an attempt to learn more about NATO air defense systems in Poland, I still think it is more likely that these were easy to jam drones that went off course and found their way into Poland. And again, that just emphasizes this is not a reason to escalate, as some people are demanding. And, right now it looks like, and I hope, cooler heads will prevail. But the more incidents that we have like this, the more easily they'll be exploited by people who do want to see NATO and particularly the United States get directly involved in this war.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I was just saying all last night, stay frosty. Just absolutely stay frosty, because from the I'll ask you even on the next level. Does it make sense from the Kremlin's perspective to draw NATO into the war right now? What motivation would they have to bring NATO into war with Ukraine, given that it looks as though the momentum has stalled in these peace talks?
The Russians right now, as we've discussed before, have a military edge. It's not a decisive military edge, but indisputably, they have a military edge and they have a key advantage. They have no interest in drawing us in right now. There is one party that has an interest, and that is the Ukrainian government. And again, I don't blame them. They want us involved in the war because they have manpower deficits, they have certain equipment deficits. They want NATO directly involved. That is the party who wants us involved. And the Russians right now have no reason to escalate and to draw us in, regardless of what some of the more unhinged voices in Northwest D.C. or in Europe want to say. So I think that's important to remember, is that we can make the Russians out to be these irrational monsters, but the reality is that they have behaved very rationally at certain points in this war, and would be irrational to draw us in at this point.
No, I think that's right. Dan Caldwell, tell people where they can go to follow you and get updates. And also, by the way, glad to hear that you're doing well from a medical perspective in addition.
Thanks, Jack. I'm recovering well, and I appreciate your prayers and prayers of those in your listeners. Best place to find me is on X at Dan D. Caldwell. That's where I post most of my work. And thanks for having me on, Jack.
Yes, of course, Dan. We're getting some reports. We know that Charlie Kirk is on tour right now, and we're getting some live reports from that as we speak. I'm going to work on seeing what's going on the break here, and we'll have more information if we have something to report right around the bend. Stay frosty, ladies and gentlemen. As always, we'll be right back. Real America's Voice.